Welcome back to Weebology, everybody. I'm your tired but confused Professor Ricky.
What's up? I'm your Professor Ethan.
I'm tired and confused because I did a whole binging sesh. One season, just 4 hours, real easy.
Yeah.
But I'm confused as to why is it like almost like synonymous that it's like tiring now to binge? Binging is not remember how there's memes that are just like, oh yeah, I'd rip like 3 anime a day and just like absolutely crank out like 12 hours of anime watching and be none the wiser or anything like that. But now one season gets me all sunken.
Yeah, I don't know. I would say currently it's probably just like a environmental factor.
I figure
there's a lot of pollen going around, and I pretty much wake up tired these months.
You wake up tired?
Oh, just like absolutely despondent.
Good use of despondent. You feel that the pollen has something to play here? We're going to call it an environmental issue?
I certainly think that if we could just kill all the trees, I'd be way happier this time of month.
Just scorched earth policy, just get the trees out of here.
I guess whichever ones spew pollen
Whatever
everywhere.
one is being loud about their sexual conquests.
Right.
Stop with that.
I mean, I'm kind of tired of having their stuff in my brain.
I'm a little sick of it too, frankly.
Yeah.
Deciding what allergy medicines I need to take this year.
Trees are problematic. Why is nobody talking about this?
Because I think there's other trees that are a little more benign about their oxygen making, but some of them
are
a little loud about it.
Trees are problematic.
Some are, and I think
fuck them.
Burn
them all.
I'm more of a conifer guy. I think the pines.
I do like conifers.
The pines got the game down.
I think they might have.
I never inhaled a pine cone. I'll tell you that.
That's probably true.
Yeah, see? Yeah. Back in the day when I was a young lad climbing those, and I'd rather climb those than a maple. Maples are
for sure
abrasive.
Annoying. Bad.
Just got me nostalgic about the days, back in school.
Back in the days when we were young. Something like a loaded gun. Whatever that song said. Yeah, totally.
But speaking about being young, we got a show we're talking about this week. That, oh yeah, and it's funny because it's not just the talk of the town right now, but it's one that I think Ethan was like a little wishy-washy on in the chat, like a little not real hot on. I'm curious to hear what he has to say about this because I knew he was like, I think he actively said somewhere in the 50s for this one, but
right.
We'll see what happens. So Ethan, you want to do the honors? See what's good?
Sure. So this week we're talking about the worldwide sensation, My Dress Up Darling.
Ooh, M-Dud. Let's go.
Yeah, M-Dud for those who love it.
My Dress Up Darling, I just binged it. I just binged the whole thing, and clearly I was kidding about Ethan's. Ethan's been hot on this.
In more ways than one.
Absolutely. So, I want to hear your initial thoughts, because, this is your review of this show via Discord, $1 and up, patreon.com/weebology, but also, to me, and just, when you're actually watching it weekly, which is something you also will wait on sometimes, but this one grabbed your attention quick, early, and hard, frankly. So
sure. So I originally started watching it in an effort to combat our critics who seem to think that we only watch one type of show.
I don't know what you mean.
They, for some reason, think you watch way more different types of show than I do, and I don't know if I agree with that. I think we both equally watch random
I actively
shit.
disagree with their opinion of that. I'll take their opinion of that.
Right.
In our Discord, the people are just like, yeah, Ricky just branches out so much more, and I'm like, no, I fucking don't.
Yeah, it's very odd to me.
Absolutely, I don't do that.
They have this very interesting opinion about you just being like this benevolent god, and I'm like, yeah, we do the same thing, though.
Oh, how the turntables.
Right.
It's
so
great.
That is nice for you.
It is.
But,
we all have our time in the sun,
right,
I guess.
But, you got to actively combat these hurtful stereotypes every now and then.
But you kind of locked in, which is interesting. So if you jumped in knowing all right, fine, we watch more than just shonens and seinens, and you jumped in, but I noticed the switch in you, that this was quite the viewing experience, so I felt like I needed to, but your initial thoughts, what about this particular romance slice of life that maybe stood out from the others from the rip? I want to, just from, episode, The Religion of Three. The first three.
Yeah. I think it's different from. I mean, I really can't name too many shows that are similar. I think
I can't either.
people have said like Nagatoro. I personally disagree infinitely.
Yeah,
I watched Nagatoro. It's not similar at all. Like, there's very little similarities, if any.
Yeah.
I mean, a boy and a girl that fall in love. Like,
whoa!
Congrats.
He's got a whole genre or a couple, at least a couple genres.
Big brain, wrinkles galore.
The wrinkles are abound.
But I did find like you could take bits and pieces of other shows that maybe not even are I mean, obviously are not necessarily shown in shows, and I could feel kind of a grab bag style of like different, maybe not tropes, but different like feelings that you get from this show in particular.
I gotta admit, yeah, I think it hit a lot more close to home than I think of a couple other romance ones that I have seen. And I don't know, it just, to me, this show stands out because of the authenticity of our titular characters, or at least the ones that were front and center the entire time.
I mean, so that is one thing I did want to mention, and I might as well throw it in now. Like, there is a startlingly small cast in this show,
and I
startlingly
for the betterment of the show, right? That because we have like, you can count maybe the entire cast on both your hands,
right?
Like maybe 6, right? 7 even, and you're sitting there thinking like, we're just following the same fucking people for like 4 hours, but then you realize that's like they're putting the actual work in, both visually, narratively, character development wise. Everything is in service of one thing, and that is the relationship between our characters Gojo and Marin. Now,
but I think also, like, as far as like a relationship blossoming kind of goes, like, this was the most organic I think I've possibly ever seen in an anime.
It was wild to witness that.
Where like it's really starts off as like both of them having a passion, and not finding anybody to connect with about that passion, or in Gojo's case, right? Somebody actually like, when he was a little kid, like, called him a creep because he liked dolls, right? Like, making these dolls.
I want to come back to that visual narrative usage of one of the tools they had in this show, but it will give the students a bit of context. You do have 2 high school students, one not so popular, one very popular in her own right. And it turns out that their secret passions, one, Gojo loving making Hina dolls, which it's a very traditional Japanese art. He took after his grandpa's, traits or passion. He's just like, I want to make dolls just like you. And he's a very good seamster. I think seamstress is the female version, so seamster makes logical sense to call him.
So be a tailor.
Oh, son of a bitch. Yeah, tailor, fine. He's a really good tailor. But then you have Marin, who is very popular in her own right, but also has a hobby she can't really relate to her friends at school, and that would be she likes to cosplay. Also, she leans into the dating sim kind of ecchi hentai shit. So that's her genres, but also she just loves to cosplay, and some of it's like magical girls, and she's a weeb. She's one of us.
Right.
She's a true student. All the things considered. And Gojo and Marin kind of find each other when he has a breakdown on his sewing machine, and he has to come to school and use the one at school, and she finds out.
Right.
And she wants him to make her a costume.
She's like, oh shit, you can sew?
You can sew? You can actually do the one thing about cosplaying that I'm shit at.
Yeah.
You're good at. Can I get you to make me something? And he doesn't just make it. He fucking makes it.
Right.
And here we see, it's more, it's not just about their relationship, it's also a converging of 2 passions. Like, a passion that can help another's passion. Like, and I found it very interesting. One thing that I did find I wanted to mention, that of making traditional Hina dolls, Gojo's bad at making faces, rather making the dolls themselves. He's good at the clothes. If only, that's the first thing I thought, if only he had a perfect ready-made doll to tailor for. And here we are. We have Marin, who is just this
I think
absolute.
That's kind of the point of the.
I get. Sorry, I just
really the titular character.
I know. I wanted to make a note because I was really happy. Like, they're not just fulfilling each other's passions; they're also fulfilling each other's lackings, which is great. It's not just her lacking the ability to make clothes; he lacks the ability to make a good doll for said clothes. So. Right there.
Right, so you take perfection incarnate, which is Marin, and you throw her in whatever he makes. No, but I don't know. I view this as like literally the least toxic possible anime relationship in history.
Yeah.
Because
it's completely positivity.
But like you say, it's like positive for both sides, right? Like both people are getting something out of this burgeoning relationship.
Sure.
Regardless of whether they do end up, getting together, is like
right.
Gojo has had zero friends, and you see multiple times like there's these moments, and as like sort of this, like personal martyr type person that I am, like I can totally imagine being like, well, this fucking dime piece doesn't actually want to hang out with me. You know what I mean? Like I can totally understand that feeling. And so, like, those situations where he was constantly like, yeah, when this is done, like,
I don't get to hang out with her anymore, right?
Like, it's over.
I remember him saying that. It was at the cosplay event that, like, once we're done here, I've made her costume. I'm done here. So it was very interesting, and I think
I think it's,
yeah.
Just quickly,
sure.
It's kind of like another, almost like a commentary on society. Like, everything feels extremely transactional. Right? Where it's like, you have something I want, and when I get it, I'm gonzo.
That was the one thing I was going to say, is that Gojo as a character, I think I like a little more in some cases than Marin, because I think we, students, professors, and everyone in the middle alike of this particular brand of study or passion of anime, I think we felt what he, and maybe to some degree what Marin's felt, where you can't really, in the past, you couldn't really display this love for this weird niche thing publicly until recently. I think animes, now we've talked about this, has really gained such a mainstream like foundation that you could probably come out and say like, oh, I'm going to go see an anime movie. And they're like, dope. All right, cool. What are you going to see? So, I mean, I kind of feel...
But I will say, somebody like Marin could have said that at any point in time, and I want to be like, yeah, totally.
That's why I think Gojo is a more relatable character, and why why it's great that he is our perception into this world, not Marin. We're not following Marin's story. We're following Gojo's relationship with Marin Blossom. And I love that he's been reclused, but in the same way we get on mic every week and talk about this. We toil and look at the details, just like Gojo. So, like, I love the fact that we're following him, because I feel like while they relate on their weird niche passions that can't be related to the majority of the world, I like Gojo's approachability to it, his tenacity to learn the thing, but also his almost unapproachability with, like, some of the nuanced or the other aspects of this genre, which I think that's a good segue into a very heated conversation about this show. And that's the ecchi.
Just wait for a second.
You want to okay. Let's
because there's different points where he was like afraid to essentially ask her for an extended timeline.
Yeah.
But it was just like there was no real timeline. It's just like something that he came to a different conclusion than. Like, I think it's important to talk about the two different characters. Like, he's very introverted and, like, obviously didn't have a lot of social interaction with other kids.
Right.
Whereas Marin is just, like, she's kind of, like, so whimsical. And, like, a character that I would kind of connect her to or think isn't a good analog is the main chick from Your Lie in April. Where she's just, like, one of those human beings, like, you see and you're like, this world is for her, right? Like, they just act, and it's not like necessarily a negative, but they act in such a way where it's just like,
how do you even operate?
Right. It's just like, it's like the world physics that do not apply.
Right. And you somehow make it work. That's the one thing, right?
And like as far as like them getting like closer as friends and yada yada, even I guess business partners in some regard.
Yeah, they're
like I loved how she was able to. Like, she didn't change for him in any way. She was just, like, herself.
She just revealed more
and she was able
to
kind of drag him into kind of, like, the light, so to speak, of, like, he had never been to the ocean. He had never stepped into the ocean, and they lived down the street. He had never gone to a fireworks festival. He lives down the street. It's just, like, she, like, essentially pulls him kicking and screaming in some regards. Like, not actually because he's too reserved.
Yeah,
but
right.
toward, like, actually experiencing life.
What's interesting there is that, to your point, she never changed for him. She just revealed more and more of herself. Just kind of peeled back some of the layers.
But she's like kind of an open book from the rip.
That's the other thing, right? Is that he is, like his grandpa said, you just have to experience more things. So she is that window into the rest of the world that he never had. And like, she's always been an open book, but he's starting to open up and listen to that, right? So he may not be peeling back the layers. She's not so reserved where it's always that way, but he's starting to realize them. You see that a couple times in the show, like the way she lights up at certain things or the way she dresses in a certain way and not just with cosplay. And he's just like, okay, I'm learning the little things, and he's starting to pick up on that. So it's fascinating the way that their characters, and I almost feel like it's a little cliche. This open book, whimsical chick or one character, and the reserved but talented, other character. I'm not even putting genders on it because it can definitely be switched, but I've seen this before. I just think this feels almost like not a subversion of slice of life romance, but a refinement of it.
Certainly, this is no reversion.
This is no subversion.
No subversion.
We're not getting anything terribly new here,
right?
But
I would say this is very typical of like a Japanese romance.
Sure,
dork loser guy and like just dime piece woman.
Dime piece woman, but it's just refined. It's just perfectly honed in. I don't know. It's just, but I'm trying to, before I get to the ecchi conversation, I'm trying to find out exactly why it's the exemplary example. I'm missing a bit of that. Like I'm standing.
I feel like we've been talking about it for the last 18 minutes, and that's the reason that I was so bought in. Is like she's pulling this guy into like reality essentially. But it's almost like it's different because she not only is like pulling him into her reality, but she's also realizing and recognizing his own like love for dolls and making dolls, right? She never once like made him feel bad or weird about this passion that he has.
Of course, yeah.
And like I think that's, as anime fans of our age,
yeah.
There was definitely points where it's like you do not tell people you're into anime.
Absolutely, you don't tell anyone else. We had that famous joke that you'd rather be watching something else than watching anime.
Right.
You'd rather be telling people that you're watching anything else.
Right. And so I don't know. I think it's just like it's almost like a I don't know what you call it. It was like a moment in time that's like so applicable to society.
Just a snapshot. It's just,
but like, there's a word for that. I don't know what it is, but
freeze frame.
No,
I don't know.
It's like a $10 word. I'm sure
it's a $10 word.
Right. That's why I can't think of it right now.
I only got $3 in my wallet,
exactly,
dude. I got nothing for that.
But it's I don't know. I just feel like it's kind of like a glimpse into. I honestly, anime as a genre, like becoming more mainstream and becoming like not that thing that necessarily you feel bad about telling people that you enjoy.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, just for instance, like you've said you've talked to like different work people or people that like are not even on your team necessarily. Like I would never in a million years have considered doing that. But it came 2016.
Oh, absolutely not.
Or but honestly, even now, frankly, for me, just because my office is very, very different.
In 2021. It came up organically in conversation, which blew my fucking mind, right? So this show, I think, like, because I'll put it this way. when I started this, and I still am now, I'm standing on the precipice of a 90, but I'm teetering. Okay. I don't know if we're going to get into that, but I want to find out why. I want to find out why I'm teetering. Why?
I mean, you'd have to tell me. I can't tell you.
And that's what I'm doing. So like, I'm here, and one of the things that gets me closer to that 90 is kind of what you're saying. This show,
how fucking hot it is.
It's so hot.
No.
Oh my god. It embodies that feeling of like somebody gets your passion, right? When no one else around you and you feel like you can't tell the world what excites you, someone else understands what excites you. And that'd be as if like, you or I, like, or just you and I, but also like you were to like, oh yeah, I just like to draw cartoons, but I don't know what anime is. Interesting. So you love animation, but you don't know what anime is, and I love anime, but I can't draw as well as you can. Your passions converge, and you can understand each other.
Right.
That feeling is a very like palpable, but also very specific feeling. So this show not only targets that, but capitalizes on it for a romance slice of life. So I think that's big pro tenant number one. It capitalizes on the feeling of someone understanding your niche passion, and not quite anything else can replicate that. Some other shows might. Keep your hands off Ears-Zen Kun. Yeah.
Very good.
Very good. Yeah. But that kind of captures a bit of it. It's a squad of 3 chicks and they get it. But the way they capture this one in a romance slice of life, it doesn't hit like most others. So that's kind of where I'm at with positive on that. So,
all right, I think it's time to get into this.
Is it time? Is it time now?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I'll take it from here.
All right, do it.
I've gotten a lot of, I guess, pushback for what people are deeming hypocrisy about ecchi,
blasphemy
in regards to this show versus other shows.
Mm-hmm.
And I really wanted to endeavor to explain why I think it's more acceptable in a show like this than it would be for like a rando show to just be unnecessarily ecchi.
Speak your truth, my buddy.
There's this. All right, I'll just start with why I think this show makes sense. Number one, it's literally a show about a relationship. It is about romance. So having a character like Gojo, who's obviously going to be noticing like Kitagawa's insane bod. Right? Like, it's not necessarily, like, it makes entirely too much sense to me that he's like, noticing these things.
Right.
But also, like, Marin as a character, she, like, is a model outside of this.
I think she said she models for magazines. He even said, like, you're in a magazine. I'm like, yeah, that's my side hustle.
Right. So she's a model.
Yeah.
She likes to cosplay.
Yes.
She also likes to cosplay erotic things, like from games or shows and things like that. So it's
literally her genre is ecchi and like erogay and like hentai shit.
Right.
Like,
so it would be, I think, really weird and sterile as a show if there was zero ecchi in this. In my opinion.
So you feel, and I want to get this on record because I'm in your camp. I'm in your camp here. That you would feel that a complete devoid and lack of ecchi and softcore shit in this show would be weird to not have any of it there.
If they're literally saying, yes, I'm going to cosplay this character who straight up is wearing like lingerie, yes, it would be weird.
It'd be weird, right? So to that end,
people giving me a lot of shit because I don't like it in other shows, and it's just because it like this fully folds into what the story is about. It also fully folds into like the flow of the show. To me, ecchi in other shows is just so jarring and unnecessary. For instance, like you've got a shonen like Fire Force.
Yeah.
And this girl just literally cannot keep her clothes on. But it's always in like a situation where they're about to go fight like the big bad. And you're like, what the fuck is the point happening? Of this?
I actually feel that way a good bit about Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon?
Absolutely.
I feel that way a lot about that show. And that's actually been a big turnoff for me on that show. But
like, I just also wanted to say, like, a couple weeks ago or whatever, we talked about Mirika-chan.
Yeah.
Like, that for me was wild as fuck to, like, just show, like, ass shot pans of this like girl who's supposed to be scared out of her mind. It's just like, it made no sense to me. Why even add that scene in, except for, I think what it is like, if an ecchi scene feels genuine to the plot and genuine to like the idea of the show, like it does not feel like a negative to me.
I love that you brought up Mirko-chan for this, because what's interesting about Mirko-chan is that I remember talking, I think it was 2 weeks ago from the airing of this episode, that Mirko-chan is trying to emulate slice of life to subvert it with horror. And them placating on the tropes of slice of life, I think that's the sole reason I could justify the ecchi being in that show. Now, in this show, in My Dress Up Darling, now we have a show that is specifically from a character, a narrative point of view. Like, there's literally every single angle you come at this show from, the ecchi needs to be there. It needs to be there, which is wild. And the way that they worked it all in, to your point, you're right. If they didn't show some of that, it would have felt weird as a show about costume play. So
I think it's also like a little more realism too.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, because there was, after their first like cosplay gig, and it was super hot, right? She was just dripping with sweat.
Yeah.
Like, that is a reality. Like, I hate to break it to you guys, but like,
that's a real thing.
Models unfortunately still sweat, right?
Yeah.
And so
not all the shit they wear is like breathable, and they have corsets on, and like they're literally like in costume.
So there was people that were giving me shit for that scene, and I'm just like, what the fuck do you want them to say? Like, I wore an ice vest underneath, so I'm perfectly heated.
Okay.
It just feels like a little bit of additional realism. Like, and Gojo is horny as fuck for her. What do you expect him to be looking at? I don't get it.
Right. But I want to hear your thought on, everyone gave you shit because I think the crux of the shit giving is...
I'd love to figure it out, because it made no sense to me.
It's because people are like putting all this ecchi shit on a platitude, like a plateau, right? That all ecchi is built equal,
which
right?
It is not.
It's not. It's clearly not. So I want to hear from you. I think we talked about a big part of it, but like, why do you think people take ecchi from maybe My Dress Up Darling and like Mushoku Tensei, and they equate the same, that, oh, Ethan hates the one in this show, but he loves the one in this show. Where is that? Where are they missing the line, do you think? Like, what makes...
Well, I think potentially a bad example, just because I think the reason Mushoku Tensei is so weird is because it's predatory, right?
It is predatory, but that's also because of his character growth. We can get into that in a different episode, but...
And I also, like, that show literally devolves into, like, a fucking fantasy sex novel, right? Like, at the end.
Yeah.
And like, a lot of the shows that I have liked in the past that I didn't know the full length of turn into something like that. So it's kind of like hard to really tell from a first season. I can think of a few, like The Realist Hero turns into just like a sex novel. I didn't know that.
Okay, let's take
Eighth Son. Are you kidding me? Turns into a sex novel as well.
Then let's talk about maybe Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, or Mirko-chan versus this show.
Sure.
What about, because the ecchi, and I'm actually going to put my hat in the ring for this one on the animation of this show. Good God, this Sakuga in the little moments in this show. Fucking phenomenal.
I also think the last episode, they went to the bajillionth
They went
degree.
to the nines, dude.
I watched it and I was like, this is so fucking gorgeous.
The last two with like the ocean and like the fireworks, like, good Lord. And like, I'm gonna be dead ass serious. When they're in the Love Hotel and he grabs her midriff, and like, just like the midriff, just like every frame was animated perfection.
Yeah.
Just a little jiggle to everything. And I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, the budget on just these little scenes. Maybe that's part of the ecchi. Maybe ecchi needs to be animated well. I don't know. I'm curious if that has anything to do with it.
For me, it's really just comes down to like, does it fit the tone of the show or not?
And Like, you put it the best, honestly. There was no way this show could be as good as it was without it.
Now, there were certainly opportunity or situations where it went a little too far.
You got an example? I actually didn't feel that much.
When Shinju comes to his house, what's her name?
Shinju, yeah, the sister, right?
No, Shijuna.
So Juju.
Yeah, sorry, Juju comes to his house. Yeah. It's like raining outside or whatever. Her grandpa
says, a fucking shower.
Her grandpa says, yeah, she can go like dry off or whatever in the bathroom. He Gojo just like opens the fucking door, like without knocking or anything, even assuming it was Marin. I'm like, where did he expect this to go regardless of who it is?
That's a really fair point. Like, you could have opened it no matter who it was and still have
So he just like slams the door open and she's like full ass naked in front of him and then also falls and we get like, an unnecessary pan.
Yeah.
I think there is certainly an opportunity to parse the scenes and say like there's places where it went overboard. I totally will not disagree whatsoever, but in my opinion, like saying like for instance all ecchi is equal is ridiculous.
But I feel like that's what people are coming at you with, right? Like, oh, this show has it, but also this show has it.
People
right?
are assuming my opinions on things based on like specific snapshots of shows of other shows.
Well, sure, that's what I'm trying to clear the air.
That's silly.
It is silly. It is silly.
But like also, we're not like super family friendly show here, but like our relatives listen to it, so it's not like I'm gonna be like talking about hentai and like porn, right?
Well, I mean,
just like silly.
I think I've said hentai like 3 times in this show,
but
so
saying it
sorry,
is different than
Sibs.
like talking about it.
Don't look up that word, Sibs. But yeah, all that being said, you're right. Is that it's something that it doesn't need to be in every scene, but I still really enjoy the way that this show used it.
I'll like give you an example of like
sure.
Actually, two shows, one from last season and then one from previous to that.
Okay.
The World's End harem thing has to have ecchi in it.
Yeah, but that's like it's all right. That show is just written to have it. This show is written and needs it. There is a clear line in my mind.
I agree with you, but I'm also saying like, do you expect me to say watch World's End harem and be like, wow, there's too much ecchi?
That's fair.
Do you know what I'm saying?
No, I get what you're saying.
I'm trying to
walk
make
in knowing it's going to happen.
That's the other thing.
Right.
When it's jarring and comes out of fucking nowhere, what do you expect me to say?
If you're fully prepped walking in and you see it, you're like, okay, fine.
Right.
Cool.
Or if you know like the eventual like storyline, right? Like I still will never be on Mashoko Tensei's
bullshit.
I just think it's really, really sick, frankly.
That's fair.
But like a show like The Realist Hero, like if I had known that it was just going to devolve into like he's going to collect women and at some point have kids with all of them, right? Like I could at least know that it was coming and not feel so like taken aback when like weird shit's eventually going to happen.
Right. A show that's written so it can be there rather than a show that is written so it needs to be there.
Yeah.
There's a difference, I think. And that's how you know that you have trash, ecchi shit is like, again, I keep going back to, is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? You never, ever, ever needed it for the plot line of that show, but it's there anyway, right? It wasn't written to have it, but it's not written in a way that needs it. And that's how you know you have trash ecchi. You have shows that are trash ecchi shows.
Now, I'm going to let you like pump the brakes a little bit on How to Train, whatever the fuck it is, pick up girls in a dungeon.
Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Okay.
There's literally like sex goddesses. Like, what do you expect them to be?
But again, the show, as it's written high level, fantasy world, dungeon crawling, it didn't have to have that.
Well, it literally was like a main plot line that the like one of the sex goddesses like wants him, and so his goddess is
right
trying to fight back.
Right. I'm
just saying like that made sense to me.
It makes sense now that you've watched it, but like there are 3 types of shows. There's like, My Dress Up Darling, you have World's End Harem, and you have Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon. The Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon, it didn't need to have ecchi, nor was it written in a way that it would allow it. It just happened to be there. So it's kind of this benign, not needed, but present ecchi. Now you have World's End Harem. That was written like a redo of a healer, written explicitly to make sure that harem is part of it.
Right.
And that's fine for the people. And like you said, you walk in knowing. It was written that way. Literally, you look at the synopsis online. Yes, there's going to be a lot of softcore shit. And you walk in knowing that. And that's cool. But you can also deny yourself at the door. Nah, not for me. That's cool. That's why I think Is It Wrong to Pick Up Girls in a Dungeon is the epitome in my mind. There's others. Clearly there's others. But like of trash harem where like it didn't need to be there and the show wasn't written in a way that you required it. Redo of a Healer was written in a way that required it, and so was that Monster Masume show or whatever the fuck. And then you have the final but true thing, which is My Dress Up Darling, where it's a show that was written where you need to have it, but you walked in knowing, but it just felt so organic because that's the vibe.
I
also think part of it.
There's a little bit of a difference where the main characters react appropriately to the actual ecchi, whereas
yes.
Like Marin's a model, she doesn't necessarily care. She obviously knows she's attractive, but like she wants so badly to do this cosplay and so badly to like get a really good costume made that she like does not mind necessarily like the essentially near nude situation she finds herself in with Gojo.
Right there.
But there's still points where like even her will get or even she will get like flustered.
There it is.
Which is like I think very wholesome's not the right word, but like it seems
organic.
very on track and organic. And then
That's
Gojo, he also like will constantly flip between this like very shy version of himself and then the like slap your face, get ready to do business.
This is a fucking job, right? This is a job. And he'll ignore all of the lewdness of the situation. Right. So I love the way you put that.
But I think that's insanely realistic. Imagine if you're making something for a cosplayer, you would have to
do this.
Like
this is literally
it has to be done.
Yes, you are employed or asked to do a job or a duty by this person, lewd or nude or whatever the fuck they are in front of you. You still have to measure that bust, baby. Like you got to get that right. Like or your job sucks, like or your product sucks, right? So I love the way you put that. Marin being very not shy and open about changing. She always said, oh yeah, no, I'm just changing right now. And then Gojo got flustered. That's a very natural reaction because, again, she's a model. She's been doing this all the time. So her just getting unchanged in front of people is very common sense, no fuss, no mess kind of thing for her. And then with Gojo, it is still every time she does it, it's so new. It's a novel thing for him. So the organics of this show is the other tenet of why I think that the ecchi is like very I hate using we have another word besides organic, right? There must be some other word. Natural, sure, why not?
Real.
USDA grass-fed choice cut ecchi, baby. That's it. So it being presented felt natural. Him freaking out about it felt natural. It happening a couple times. And the thing she got flustered over made me laugh a lot. Because remember the time that she like, oh, I wore a fancy bra today and it was one of her basic bras. And she's just like, oh, fuck. She got flustered, not because that she was exposed, but like, it's the wrong one. I wanted to show him the good one. And she's just like, oh, shit, this is one of my basic bitch ones. So I love that. So like her and Marin as a character, she flipped back and forth between like completely on her shit and also like completely out of it, like not.
Yeah, but that's like the whimsical type of person.
It's great,
specifically whimsical type of girl.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you would definitely like. It felt very, very real, like realistic to have that type of person act in a similar manner that she did.
Right,
and I think like the character, at least Marin was just so lively. Like there was a almost 3D kind of impression she makes on the audience. I feel. There is
a lasting effect.
It may just be like her energy almost.
I want it.
There was just something that was just like blapping out of the screen.
I think it was the fact and I think for a lot of people, a character like Marin kind of embodies a vision of people who watch anime, or just like that fan base that like wants to wear themselves on their sleeves but can't or won't, right?
Sure.
And she does wear every part of herself on her sleeve if you're there to listen, right? With her friends at school, she doesn't talk about the cosplay shit, or when she does, it's kind of she swiftly puts it back in the bag and kind of thing like that. But if you listen to her, you're actually paying attention like Gojo does. She wears everything on her sleeve. It's all right in front of you if you're willing to listen. So I think she embodies kind of this escapist fantasy of a lot of people socially that, you know, I think we all kind of want to be a little bit of Marin, right? You want to wear a bit of more yourself on your sleeve. With that level of confidence and that jovial nature that she does it with, I kind of want to be able to do that. Who doesn't, right? You know, so there's something, organics, natural, something about Marin's character and the nuances of that. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And
then, I mean, like, I don't know if that is going to be enough of a reason for people to not think I'm a hypocrite about ecchi. I think if you disagree, like, it's clearly a you problem at this point. Like,
yeah, I mean, because
your opinion of my opinions is like, it's very hard for you to know possibly what I could possibly be thinking.
Nor should you try to clap back on their opinions of your opinions of their opinions. And
no. I can clap back on them judging my opinions all day long.
I'll clap back, no problem. That's neither here nor there.
All day long.
Oh yeah.
But you know, I don't know. There's a very clear line, right? Like, I mean, I'll just fucking
come out and
put
say
it all
dude.
Out there. Like, even redo the healer. Like, all of the ecchi made sense.
It made sense. It was abhorrent, like aberrant.
Yeah, it was wild.
It was awful, but
it made total fucking sense.
Yes, from the context of the story, it made sense. That's why I think people go back and forth on Goblin Slayer a little bit.
I mean, that didn't make sense to me. It was like over the top, unnecessary.
It was unnecessary to prove the evilness of the goblins, of the Slayer.
Which is like, okay, kind of.
I can kind of understand the through line, but their execution was way too poor.
Then again, I've read like plenty of books where shit just goes like very, very aggressively in one direction for like small periods of time to just like almost shock value.
Didn't Combatants Will Be Dispatched have like a scene like that in the beginning, or am I forgetting something? There's another scene. There's another show that had a first scene like Goblin Slayer, and I can't remember. I think
it was Idoate deities or whatever. Idoten.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Idoten deities only no peace. Or something like that. Yeah, that kind of show, right? That seems unnecessary,
and it was entirely for that show.
Completely unnecessary. So you know,
I don't know. It's just like ecchi's fine if like it plays along with the theme of the show. It doesn't like feel jarring when you watch it. It feels like, you know, it's additive to the plot rather than like a rando or tonal shift that is unnecessary.
Or at least the plot dictates that it should be there. It doesn't necessarily have to be additive, but if it's a natural result of the plot.
I'm not a fan of like shock value shit in anything, really, to be honest. And maybe that's where like
the horror shit for you doesn't really come in. I'm curious about that. You don't like the shock value. Like horror's like 60% shock value.
Yeah, but I'm like numb to like gore and killing people and stuff like that. It's just like if you're trying to use like a very violent sexual assault as your shock value, it's like
it's not a good time.
It just feels very weak.
It
feels like your plot blows and you had to throw something very, very shocking in there.
Unless it is a very natural result of the plot that you have. Those things, while on screen, kind of hard to look at because they're clearly awful things from a plot or a narrative standpoint. If you have a reason for these things to be there, then so be it. But utilize, right? Context, results, reaction, and then the consequences of those things. Utilize that. Those things are reality, but then you have something like My Dress Up Darling. It's not, it isn't even so much that it like needed to be there. Like you said before, you literally couldn't tell the story without it being there. Ecchi literally needed to be in this show for it to work as well as it did.
I just think it would be a much worse show.
It'd be a worse show.
I think certainly there would still be romance. There would still be this like blooming and blossoming of a relationship between the two. It's just that, like, I think they're trying to lean on, like, the more adult side of, like, high school plus the more adult side of, like, modeling.
Yeah, but even so much...
if this was a college-age kids, I would be much more okay with it. Like,
okay.
There's certainly, like, a little bit that I think needs to be said about, like, continually sexualizing these high school children for, like, consumption.
My Hero Academia is awful about this.
But I'm just saying, like, for consumption of adults, it's
sure.
It's a Japan problem, frankly.
It is.
Their, like, age of consent is 13, and they recently had, like, this huge poll. I think it was like Statista or something like that.
Cannot be supported
of whether anyone, or like they just asked a shitload of people, and they're like, in Japan, if they felt like that needed to be raised, and it was like 75% said they like literally didn't give a shit about it.
No way. That's actually different than what I thought it'd be.
Right. So it's just like, I think it's really a cultural issue.
But yeah,
at least from our perspective, from America.
That was just gonna say, right?
But
we are not Japanese boys.
And I still am like not really. I'm not sure how 13-year-olds are supposed to be able to make those types of decisions. Now, once again, these are two kids of the same age, and they don't actually do anything super sexual. So it's like it doesn't.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't feel like a weird show where it's like, yeah, Rudius literally is trying to, steal panties from all these girls, or he's like trying to feel up Eris while she's like knocked out. Like nothing like that is happening. And so like my abhorrence toward those types of ecchi scenes should not be equated to my, I guess, like relative okayance.
Right.
That's a new word.
Okayance. I want to use that. That's awesome.
Acceptance of imduds.
Well, your okayance has been heard.
Thank you, Ricky.
You're so welcome.
Richard.
So like the idea, again, not all ecchi is made equal. This is something we need to show, because this show is the point makes the case, right? Like right here, case in point. This show is how you use ecchi to its absolute fullest from what I've seen. I don't think I've ever seen a show beyond this, and I know there's some probably exists out there, and I can't wait for people in the Discord or in the comments to tell me why I haven't seen A or B, but this show is exemplary in its way that it uses ecchi and softcore shit and a little bit of the erotic, because this is a passion that is built upon some of that, and you have someone who is very comfortable versus someone who is not comfortable at all. And that mix, that her comfortability introduces it, but his uncomfortability makes it a whole ecchi scene from start to finish. It's a beautiful melding, and it just it kind of like elevates the scenes where those don't happen, but there's more romance, like the fireworks and the ocean. It elevates when that's not there, because like you see them not in a lewd situation, but there's still those slice of life romance notes. And
yeah, I mean, like personally, if I feel like if you felt it was really like over the top and weird, like I urge you to look into like what happens backstage at like those like fashion shows, right? Like shit like that, because I've seen like a few I don't know, documentaries or whatever about like Fashion Week in Milan or whatever.
I mean,
it'll be like
it happened to me. Like I worked backstage for 9 years and one of the big ones was the ballet that we have in town would do a show every year, and you had that. You like people like naked in the fucking hallway, like in the green rooms and everything like that with the doors open. They don't even have time to close their doors between changing for scenes. You just gotta get used to that shit. Like, genuinely. And, like, there's no way around some of that sometimes in certain situations. They do a anime about, theatrics or acting. They're going to show some of that. People like quick costume changes. You have 25 seconds to get out of a dress and into a stripe pin, like a pinstripe suit. And you got to get out on stage in 25 seconds. You're not going to a changing room. You're just doing it right in the wings. Like, that's how it's going to be. So I don't know why people think we'll be like, oh, they just had this much ecchi in the show, and it's just like it's the same as the other one. No, context is important, always important.
Yeah, and I think like if you even really compare it to Western media, I think there's a lot of like movies you watch where like the head spy or whatever will go in the back of like a strip club or even like a modeling event, and like everyone's just like straight up topless or whatever chatting, and it's just like
it's gonna be that way.
Like that's not any less bad than this show. Like,
so why does that get a pass? That's a good question. Why does that get a pass? Maybe mentally with other people.
Well, I mean, they're adults, so I think that's a fair.
That's also a very
fair immediate.
that's a fair thing. Yeah,
fair immediate criticism. I mean, I don't know how to get around this, right? Like they make shows about high school kids. I don't know. Like, I wish it was college kids,
right?
You know,
right?
Or adults, whatever you want to call it. But it's just like I'm guessing there's not as much. I guess. Marketability or profitability from those types of shows, and it very well may be just like the shared experience that the U.S. Audience doesn't get for these like Japanese high schools. Like I have no nostalgia toward that.
I like that because you're right. Maybe there is a cultural. We both of us recognize there's a cultural disconnect in some of these shows, right?
Well, I mean, like definitely around the like delinquent/bullying thing,
the Tokyo Revengers kind of shit, like.
Yeah, but they're also like the dorkiest type of delinquents.
They totally are.
Right? Like our delinquents will fucking shoot you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, it'll happen, yeah.
So it's just very weird to me, like this difference in culture there. But maybe even like university is just so different in Japan, they don't think it would have wide appeal.
And maybe
even though like personally I feel like their university is probably more similar to ours.
I was just going to say, but we just don't get to see it from an anime standpoint because no one gives a fuck about university students.
And I think the one show that recently at least had ventured to do that was that Rent a Girlfriend, which we never ended up finishing.
There was a meme about us not giving a shit about that show.
I don't care, man.
I'm thinking like Steins Gate too, because I know that the main character was also kind of like in his like early 20s, and like that was, for me, I considered him like an old man just because we are so used to seeing middle and high school students as our titular characters, right? So I think to this point that might be a bit of a problematic situation, but I think, you know, you get stuff like Great Pretender, Black Lagoon, you know, like you still get some of the adult shit. Even My Senpai is annoying, like the one, it's like a comedy, but it's an office comedy about adults. And, you know,
Yeah, but then, like, you get as many Nagatoros, you get as many Takagi or whatever the fuck that.
I was gonna ask you a question about that. Do you still? And I think I know the answer because I think we're both aligned on this. Would My Dress Up Darling actually hit as hard as it did if they were like adults versus high school students?
It would probably hit harder for me.
Exactly. And right there.
But like I don't like children, and it seems like Japan really likes children. I don't know what to say.
I think it's because the target audience is like a budding, you know, high school audience, and we just happen to have to live with the fact that. No, that's the thing, right? For this show, it's not. For this show, I don't think it is at all. So
I think that's my biggest concern. Is it's like these shows, they act like that's their target audience,
but it's a lot more adult.
These people have money to buy this shit. They cannot be fucking high school students.
Right.
Like, it's just that simple to me.
Right.
And so, like, I think all of these shows, like, I love this show, so, like, you know, whatever. But
this is why I want to ask.
But I just think that, in general, there's, like, a serious potential problem here where they're making these shows, like, super ecchi of high schoolers, but, like, the actual target audience is much older men.
Sure,
right?
Sure.
And like I think this more than a lot, right? Like because it's definitely like one of the horniest shows that I've seen.
It's horny
as
on
of
Maine
recent,
for days, dude. It's right there
for at least the last couple of years. I think there's depth to it though.
It is.
I think there's a lot of like, you know, good points and pros versus the con that I'm talking about. But I do think like at least I would feel much more comfortable if this was about adults.
Yeah, right. Because like to your point,
but there's also this difference, and I did want to bring this up just quickly.
Sure.
Where it seems like they groom children in Japan to be independent from an extremely early age.
Yes. Did you notice that? Like,
I've seen like a lot of.
Oh, she's in middle school. She can't have a part-time job yet. What?
But I've seen like a lot of YouTube videos, even of like they'll have 5 and 6 year olds riding a train by themselves to go to school. It's just like such a different culture. And then in this case, you see Marin lives essentially by herself.
Yeah, her parents have nothing to do with
it. And that's an extremely strong trope throughout all of anime, where like you'll have this random high school kid that just lives entirely by themselves.
Like 15-year-olds having entire apartments, paying rent, like, buying their own food. Yeah, think My Hero Academia's got to like they literally all live by themselves. You know, everyone.
Fucking Toradora.
Dorohedoro?
No, Toradora.
Toradora. Yes, Toradora, yeah. And like there's even fuck Naruto. Like literally he's sponsored, but he is living by himself at age fucking 9. Like he doesn't have like a guardian in the household.
1?
Yeah, age 1. He doesn't have a guardian in the household. Like from the time he could stand up, he's at least paid for, but he's living by himself, eating milk and ramen. That's all he's doing. So, like,
well, I feel like feudal Japan is probably a different story, and not necessarily applicable to my dress-up darling.
Well, you know what? You know, we're going deep and wide in this one.
I appreciate the reach.
Yeah, I'm going for the reach. It was a long walk, but I like the view. So, all that being said, I completely understand what you're saying. Is the fact that like. It's such a trope that, like I said, in this show, there's assumptions about when they should be working part-time, making money. Remember, like, he was talking about Shinju, Juju's sister, and saying, like, oh, I forgot, she's in middle school. She doesn't have a part-time job yet. Assuming that 14, 15 is the part-time job age in Japan, right? So, like, his assumptions were, like, it made that entire scene because of the assumption that she should be working. So you're right, this grooming of like, but let's take it from the flip side. Is it that we are not working early enough in America? Do you think that we're capable of that kind of work if we are societally pushed for that? You know?
I mean, I'm not going to, this isn't like which country's philosophy is better.
No.
I think we have a lot of issues Japan doesn't seem to have as much of.
Sure.
And maybe it's just not publicized, but I don't know. I wouldn't feel comfortable letting an 8-year-old kid, walk an hour away.
Absolutely.
It's actually a conversation I have with my uncles and stuff who lived, their 80s, right?
80s, sure. When they used to,
where they were like little kids.
Yeah.
Or I guess 70s, 80s.
Yeah.
They would like bike a town over by themselves.
I used to
like
do
in
that
the
too.
middle of the day, and nobody would give a shit. Like. Their parents would just be like, come home by 10 or whatever. You even watch like movies about the 80s and stuff like that, or even Stranger Things. Like the kids are just out doing their own thing.
Shit, you think the Goonies could happen today? Absolutely not. Just go out on the well or some shit.
And maybe that's like a commentary on how our society has devolved.
Is this where we're going right now? I did open this can of worms.
It's just, it makes it tough, I think, as like a Western audience, a Western observer, to really... I like connect with like the pure and unbridled freedom that these kids have.
Yeah, and they just happen to consistently in 2022 have it.
Well, it's just like, think about it. We didn't, like, you or I probably didn't have this level of freedom until we were 17, and we had all those, we could drive, and we had like a million study halls.
Fair, yeah, we had a lot of study halls in high school. Like we had. I
mean, my last 2 years of high school, I just
we just had we had 4th and 8th period, baby. So you had the Alpha and Omega Wednesdays. You got those on the right days. So I understand it, and I feel like that this show, it's a slice of life, but it's one of those, again, reminders of like, what life are we slicing exactly, right?
Yeah.
Like whose life? A Japanese high schooler's life, an American high schooler's life, or adult's life. Can we relate to that even in our own past or in our own present? And, this may be something why, at a larger scale, why me and Ethan may not be the biggest slice of life fans. I'm not going to speak exactly for you, but I feel like, for me, I don't relate to some of that life that they're slicing. And that might be part of it, But this one I related to very heavily. Like, the thoughts of Marin and being, who she is on her sleeve, Gojo's reserved but tenacity into his passions, and You know, I don't know.
I think this one is better about making it things that you could apply to your own life.
Yes.
Rather than necessarily like...
It knew its audience really well, I think.
Well, I'm just saying, like, being passionate about something that people necessarily don't talk about a lot, I think anyone can really apply that to something.
Exactly. Yeah. I like that.
You know, we're like an hour in, so I did want to just like quickly run through a few other things that I thought were cool. People didn't like their interactions with Juju and Shinju.
I like those.
I thought they were great.
That was great.
I thought it was like a real opportunity for them to figure out like what the pros do.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, kind of become... I think that's another thing that's interesting. Like when you get into a new hobby, like you can be really into it, but unless you have friends that are also into it, like that you find through the hobby, it's kind of hard to like get deeper into something like that.
We know this very intimately now that we have a lot of podcaster friends with the anime podcast game. So I think we felt that specific, but I like the dynamic between Juju and her little sister, where, you know, she's the pro.
Little sister, right.
Little, quote unquote, by age and age only. She's Miss Thickums, but also that sounds weird because she's like super young.
Right.
Really, really young. So I'm just going to leave that one on the table, but
she's probably older than 13, to be fair.
She is older than 13, I guess, but you have the little lolly looking older sister who is an absolute banger in the cosplay game. And then you have the younger sister who is the great photographer, but has always wanted to cosplay like her older sister. But she's also kind of always felt like she's living in the shadow. And I love the subversion of the character she chose to play was Soma-kun, a boy in that Flower Blaze show. I guess that's part of this universe. But I love that subversion because she popped off and she just like showed up and like, yeah, I'm a boy now, so whatever. And in her insecurity freaking out, we got this beautiful use of flashbacks. What I think this show did brilliantly was use flashbacks. Her entire flashback of like 15 minutes culminated in proving why she was completely insecure about becoming a boy as a cosplayer. And after all of that that trifling and strife and all that, both the people she was most anxious about showing this off to loved every bit of what she came in with. And that was a very wholesome moment.
Yeah, and like this show's not without controversy. Like obviously the ecchi's part of it, but there was also a character that Marin wanted to cosplay that had like a very dark complexion.
Oh,
so
right.
So she like uber tanned.
Yeah.
And supposedly that was an issue, whatever.
Was
people
whine.
Yeah.
Oh, jeezy Pete. Come on, guys.
I mean, Twitter is a absolute
it's a fucking
wasteland.
hellhole.
But anyhow, so but I think that it's interesting in a show where they do try to. I feel like they leaned very, very heavy into like if you love the character, you should be able to cosplay them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, even like they talked about, you know, Juju. She says like she likes to play those like lolly type characters because that's her like body type.
Exactly.
And then Shinju said she couldn't cosplay anybody that wasn't like massively busty. Let's just say.
Sure.
But like Gojo is very, very like. I just loved the growth he had to where he was like, no, go after your passion kind of thing because of what Marin was able to bring him into and like show him kind of like a new world where he can kind of belong as well.
He
which
learned
is like,
to care.
Right?
Yeah.
He's able to like also usher in other people as a result. I think it's kind of like that the philosophy where like if you're nice to somebody then they like have a brighter day and they're nice to somebody and that kind of like the pay it forward kind of scenario.
Karma's not a cosmic force, it's a state of mind where like
you're
more aware of like the positivity around you if people are positive to you and you are just more positive to them. So I mean I totally understand that, and Gojo's kind of the perfect embodiment of that he gives forth those positive vibes because of Marin's influence on his life. So
but I just
really
thought
cool.
It was like such a like, you know, beautiful scene essentially to say like, look, if you want to cosplay him, let's do our best to help you to do that.
Let's take a crack at it.
Right. And I it's just like, it's something like to complain so badly because Marin got tan for her role.
Yeah.
It's like, it's kind of like this weird double standard that people have even in the cosplay community, where it's like a lot of people say you could only play like the same race of character.
Yeah, right.
But then like another half of the people are like, no, you can do whatever you want, right?
It's the love for the character that matters.
But
That's
like,
the first and foremost
also there's
thing,
this lashback for her going tan for a character, right? It's just like, I think,
what a strange thing.
but it's just another scenario where, I mean, people just gotta worry about themselves more than everybody else.
That's true,
right? And it's just kind of like in a show where they're trying so hard to like show you can do. You can enjoy these characters and become these characters regardless of your body type, regardless of your skin color and all these things. Like a very inclusive message, I thought.
Yeah, if you have a passion for the character, it's all that matters.
Right, to get this like backlash, I thought was just like absolutely ridiculous.
That's strange. I didn't even hear the backlash.
Yeah.
So okay,
because we don't go on Twitter.
Well, no, yeah, I don't go on Twitter. So you know what? Is it time to do it to him? You think we got to do the score thing situation, or you got more?
You can score first.
All right. I'm going to give this an 86 out of 100 lolly costumes.
I think that's really, really low.
I know. 86.
Jeez.
Oh, you're
I mean, it was definitely a show where like every episode I was like, fuck, I want the next episode.
Really?
Oh, also just to comment, I think both the OP and ED were absolute banger.
The
classics.
OP was absolute fire. Didn't skip it once. That
classics.
was wired.
I listened to both entirely.
I was wired every single time I got that OP. ED was fine, but I did
thought
skip
the ED was better.
Okay. I skipped it because I knew I had to binge it so I can come to the lab to talk about this. But the OP, chef's kiss, no notes, platy.
Right.
Platy further, like not a big deal.
Right. Definitely helps.
Yep. Oh, you're. That sounds like 90 noises.
Oh, we're way above 90.
Oh my goodness.
I'm somewhere between 95 and 100. I'm just trying to figure out
Whoa, what the fuck?
I told you I really fucking
I know
enjoyed
you
the
fucking
show.
loved it. I didn't think you were going to be in the high 90s, my dude.
I'm just trying to even like find an analog of like a show that I really enjoyed.
I want to say I think there's been a 99 out of your mouth in the past. I can't remember. Saints got the list.
Well, the first half of like
SAO or something like that. Yeah.
SAO.
Oh, GZ Pete. Do I have to do some editing to cut this out right now?
Nah, I mean, you guys can understand how beleaguered I am trying to figure out a.
So that actually, that is a statistic. While he thinks that's something that if someone wants to give us numbers on, is the number of seconds between quote unquote doing it to him and actual numbers out of our mouth.
Right.
Like how many seconds and minutes between that and actual numbers out of our mouths. Because for me, I think my dead average would probably be around like 6 seconds. But for you right now, you are
currently it's tough. But normally I have an answer immediately.
You were way out of here with that one.
But I what did you give Mashoko Tensei?
Like a 94.5, dude.
This is a better show for sure.
No, this is not a better show than that, dude. I'm sorry, man.
Fuck it, I'll just say 98.
98.
Why not?
Holy shit, dude, that's an A-pluser. That's a mean A-pluser.
Well, it's not an A+, but it's definitely good.
That's an A-pluser. Come on, 98's an A-pluser.
A 98 is not an A+.
Whoa, then what is then? 99 or 100?
100 is an A+.
Oh, come on, there's definitely a plus up top. 92 is a B+, and 90's a B+. There's definitely a range.
I guess you went to like some crackhead college, my bad.
Dude, a crackhead college? You and I went to the same high school, my dude. We definitely had...
We didn't have A+.
We definitely had A+.
No, it was A, B, or C. There was no in-betweens. No in-betweensies.
Well, whatever, man. I'm gonna B, a D, and C your way out of this fucking lab.
Very bad.
Very good. Very
horrible.
Good. That was an F.
Disgusting.
That was an F. You know what? That was an A+. How's that? I'll take that. But yes.
Sad.
Doesn't matter. You just heard a 98 out of Ethan's mouth. You should go watch. I will say, because I gave it an 86 because I felt like it is, it's a well above average show. It doesn't fall into the 90s for me because it's part of a genre that I don't feel like I can quite understand it's fully exemplary, but like the case for a 90 plus is very much made. Like that's totally fine.
Okay, how about like this versus like Ouran Host Club?
Ooh. And I'll watch Ouran Host Club. I actually would probably put Ouran Host Club as like a 90.
They're just different, I think.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. It's something about Ouran like will hit me in the 90s.
Yeah, but when
like,
you get this second season and
now hold
you
on
see
now.
them
No,
kiss
yeah,
and,
hold
like,
on.
become a thing, an item.
That's what I'm saying.
And maybe
like,
they fight. Like, oh God, would that be awesome?
Like a proper fight in the makeup, like
a proper drag out, mate.
A proper drag out. All right. Fine. Season 2 comes around, and if it's as banging as season 1, it goes way up in the 90s for me. How's that?
All right. I'll take that all day long.
Yeah, I'll write that check, and we'll take it to the bank. But thank you guys for coming to this, I would say, strange class. We had a show that I don't think we commonly like the genre of, but Ethan he's a fucking fiend for this one, man.
Yeah, I mean,
I respect you for that.
I don't know. I've actually watched a fair bit of this type of shit. You guys just don't hear about it because I'm not gonna like talk about a million shows that we haven't reviewed.
It is strange that they think that I'm so much more open.
I have to put it in the pocket. You know what I'm saying?
You do, and I think we both venture our own ways out into the different ethers of the anime.
Go your own way.
Go your own way. But thank y'all for coming to this very weird class. If you want to check us out anywhere else, you're already on the platform. Go check us out in our backlog over there. But all of our links in the description below, anywhere you're listening to this. Patreon.com/weebology. Only if you can give us some monetary love, $1 and up gets you into our Discord with all of our past guests and the lovely Patreon folk. And there's been some discussion about wiki pages lately, which I did not know that was happening, and it's very strange.
Yeah, I think fandom is more likely.
I think fandom's more likely.
Yeah. Also, the YouTube channel is back current, so if you'd rather watch,
yeah, we got a good workflow for that.
Yeah,
so,
you can do that.
Like, comment, subscribe over there for sure, please.
And then like I do have to backfill kind of the 30 plus episodes we missed, but
what do you mean? They're just lost to the ether. Who cares?
Well, I hope not. Some of them for sure are. So there's going to be that. But yeah, if you'd rather see the visual content, feel free there.
Hello, we're back on it. We got a good workflow for that.
Yeah,
and I'm really happy. I'm really happy with what we got. $3 and up on our Patreon get you into the syllabus sidebar, lo-fi, high vibe, sometimes anime, sometimes not, sometimes on hiatus, and sometimes visual show where we talk about life and shit and experiment with different types of content.
We don't talk about shit, just so you know.
We may
Fecal matter does not.
We may have an episode about shit soon.
It does not enter
purely about poopy. How's that?
Poopy caca.
Poopy caca. Yes. But I think honestly that is it. You know what? Give us some old school love. If you want an anime that you want us to watch, hit us up on the Gmail, weebologypodcast@gmail.
The old snail mail.
The old snail mail. It's the old way of communicating. You can hit us up on the DMs, but you can also, if email feels like your vibe, hit us up with that. Sign it. Yours truly, Weebs Bestly. I don't care how you sign it. Just do it. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, Weebs Bestly. Yeah.
What the fuck?
Weeby Dearest.
Yeah.
I'm just having fun with these now.
Yeah, I think we should totally end it.
We're going to end it?
You're going off the deep end, my guy.
I'm going off deep end, but until I can claw my way back up the cliff of the deep end I just jumped into, I'm Ricky.
And I'm Ethan.
And this is still Weebology.
Deuces.
I'm climbing up that wall, my dude. I love the deep end.
At least you're not in the void.
I'm not in the void. We're doing better with that.
It's a good start.
It's a good end.